Hello and welcome to our podcast Learn More. I am Ali Al-Matroushi and I have Mayar Akrama, a management consultant specializing in the public sector and a traveler with me today. It's my pleasure having you here, Mayar.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Let's start with telling the audience more about you, maybe. How is it being a consultant in your field?
Sure. So consulting, I'm not sure everyone knows about it. It's quite a time-consuming job, let's say. It's a job where you're tested out. You're supposed to just take about client problems, try to fix these problems, come up with solutions that they think they can implement, and then take it from there. It typically presents you with very complex and interesting problems. So it's never boring, but it's quite time-consuming and exhausting. A typical workday is like 12 to 14 hours. Sometimes you have to work the weekends. But it does pay off in terms of it is interesting. It's a lot of networking and it's a lot of meeting of cool clients here and there. Specifically for me, I work in the public sector. And public sector means it's a bit more demanding just because it's just an evolving environment, but it's quite fun. But as I've said, quite exhausting as well. And with Corona coming down right now, every circumstance of how consulting is being dealt with right now is changing bit by bit. So it's a constant adapting to new changes in the environment, I guess.
That's very nice. Okay, so as you mentioned with the Corona and you mentioned to me before on the phone that you have crazy working hours. So does this affect your finances positively or negatively?
Yeah, as I was saying, consulting is quite that time-consuming job. For me, just to make it a bit more even clear, is that before Corona, a typical week for a consultant is to travel out on a Sunday or a Saturday and come back on a Wednesday or Thursday. So you're most of the time outside of the country doing these 12 to 14 hours a day. So you really don't know what's happening throughout your day except working. So you automatically start tracking up these expenses that you don't even think about. You're either ordering in every time, you're paying for taxes that you don't realize, or for some simple reason, which is why you called me a traveler before, because you're so exhausted during the week. For you, the weekend is a matter of time spent on only thinking about what you want to do for fun and if you can go to a destination. So budget management expenses is not something you think about, and you actually think, I don't want to do a responsible thing this week. I'm going to be just comfortable and happy. And because you have that mentality, you don't think about what you're spending, and you end up spending way more than you do, what you know, and you don't even keep track. So personally, I don't know if others are feeling the same, but I know some of my friends did. It affects your expenses very, very negatively. Because you're wasting time during the week, you say, I'm going to reward myself with X, Y, and Z, or I'm not going to think about it for now. I'll think about it later when I have some free time. And then that free time never comes. And so you come to the end of the month with a credit statement that you're like, okay, fine. Let's see what we can do about that. So it's affected it pretty negatively.
To me, when you first told me about your travels and whatsoever, I was like, I bet she spends a lot on food, because when you're never free, food takeouts are the only solution.
Oh my God. You don't even imagine. And it's quite funny how it starts. You start spending on food in a way, it's a vicious cycle. You start spending on delivery every now and then. I don't have time for breakfast. I don't have time for lunch. So you order in. And then you get hit by that I want to be healthy craze. And you're like, no, but I can't order in all the time. Let me go for meal subscriptions. And so you end up even paying for a more steady version of food. It's one expense here or there. And I have my brother is on a different field and we're complete opposites. He's the kind of guy that will do budget grocery shopping for the entire month, prep his meals. And I think he's 50% saving more than me just because of that fact. And I end up just ordering in.
And I think that this is it. The little things that we think that does not matter is what at the end of the month shocks us the most.
Exactly. I swear sometimes you're like, you know what, I just think just pass by the supermarket for 5 minutes. I just want to buy one nail polish, for example. You go in and I swear I'd be doing 20-30 minutes of shopping for nonsense. Or sometimes I'm really wrecked at work, and then I'm sure you do it as well. I just open one of these shops, ASOS, Chic, something like that, and I start okay, I'm just browsing. I'm not gonna buy. I'm just browsing, but you cannot resist.
And this is where I think budgeting comes. Like, if you budget and you know that you only should like spend X amount on this, so it will always stay at the back of your mind, and you're like, no, I can't afford it right now.
Exactly, but I've never been able to do this for myself. That's my problem. I've never been able to say, oh, how much do I have left this month? Maybe I should not. I don't do this. I always think it's better to like ask for forgiveness, but that doesn't work with money, does it?
No, never.
You're gonna run out of money one day or the other.
So by that, I understand that you never used any financial management tools to stay on track?
Well, I tried, and try is a very big word. What I try to do, well, with consulting, using Excel is like using the ABCs. It's something you always use during the job. And Excel is quite a basic, if you want, tool to track your budget. But because of the lack of time, and because I consider it kind of a job or a tool that I use at my job, I don't want to use it on my weekends. So what I tried to do, I think maybe 6 months ago for the first time, was try to like download all my credit card statements and like manually code them and add them to an Excel sheet and like bucket them to what I've done in terms of entertainment, food, travel, etc. It was so exhausting.
And like
I looked at the numbers. I'm like, okay, the numbers are not nice. I don't like this. So I'm like, okay. So I said I'm gonna be strict for next month, and I put like a forecast, but I did not follow it. I don't think I know where the file is. Like that's how like my experience with management tools are so far. Like I try and I attempt, and I find them too complicated, too time consuming, and I'm like, you know what, life's too short, and I move on.
And because like you see the numbers, but okay, what do I do with the numbers? Like, okay, yeah, I have a problem, but how to fix it?
Exactly. I see them and I'm like, am I bucketing them right? Or how do I actually do 1 and 2 and 3? And by the way, the statements you get from the banks aren't the easiest statements to comprehend and to like compile and to consolidate. It's quite exhausting, or it's quite confusing. Yeah, and they don't come in the right format. It's a hassle. That's
true.
But I think I know that this is something that I need to work on. I'm not going to advocate for this behavior.
No, and this is why we always like encourage people to use Loon, not only for the sake of the application, but for the sake of the guidance,
Exactly. But by the way, I don't know if you know this, but the first 2 days I used Loon. First 2 days, I swear, I noticed that I'm paying for a subscription for a newspaper that I haven't seen or gotten an email from, I think, in 2 years.
Oh my God.
I'm like, okay, this is a monthly subscription that I didn't even notice in my statements. And I directly like stopped that subscription.
That's amazing.
And it's those tiny things, like, okay, it's $10 a month, but across the year, it's quite a lot.
Yes, and I can use the $10 for something else.
Exactly. Like I can rack it up and use it for shopping.
For that nail polish.
Exactly. For doing nails, specifically here in Dubai, where it's a bit expensive.
Considering that your job like requires a lot of traveling, like we've mentioned, is it hard to manage your traveling expenses? Like other than just the food that we mentioned before, the other expenses, is it hard for you to manage them?
So it's extremely, to be honest, hard to maintain travel expenses when you're a consultant. And it was even more drastic before Corona than now. But what used to happen is you used to not know what you're doing that weekend, and you used to come up with abrupt trips every weekend because you're on a plane going home anyways. Because as I've explained, in consulting, you're typically on client side during the week. Weekend, you go back to your home base. And usually people take advantage of that flight back and like travel anywhere. So because you're not thinking ahead about it, and you're thinking, you know what, I'm exhausted and I deserve this, you end up spending loads and loads of money on last minute tickets, last minute hotels. And then when you go to that city, you're splurging not only on food, but on experiences. And you're like, I haven't done that. And on transportation, because you didn't take the full time needed to plan a trip in every way possible. So you start doing these last minute deals, or you start saying, you know what, I pay a bit more now because I only have 2 days. And so you rack up these expenses, experiences, transport, hotels, and flights. And that's what makes a trip really expensive, specifically that you're doing it maybe over the weekend only. And that what makes it worse, you don't have time to reflect on these expenses. You come back from your trip, you go back to work, and you're like pressure at work. So you forget that you've paid. Sometimes paying has this emotional attachment to it. When you pay and you think about it the 2 other days and like try to be a bit more like rational this weekend, but with having such an intense lifestyle, you forget what you felt. And so you're like, no, I'm exhausted. I'm going to do it again. And the cycle repeats. So it makes saving very, very hard and makes this idea of rationalizing that you deserve it kind of mentality even like more dominant. Obviously, people deserve to spend money on things they enjoy, that's for sure. But I think you need to have a sort of a plan to it, or a plan towards it. Like plan, I'm gonna like only travel once a month and maybe just splurge on like 2 shopping trips. But with my kind of job, and I think some friends agree as well, you don't have time to think about it. You're just like constantly on the go and you cannot predict when you can and cannot travel. So you take advantage of the moment.
So what would you like from not maybe don't like the word mistakes, but from the things that went wrong for you?
But they are mistakes. That's okay.
How would you like go right, or what are the things that you think if you changed it would work well for you with your with the traveling expenses?
First and foremost, having the ability to forecast. No, let me reiterate. I think first of all is setting goals for yourself. This is something that I didn't do. I used to say if I put the goals, maybe I won't meet them, but no, that's not okay. I think goal number 1 is saying, okay, this is how much I'm getting per month, let's say. This is how I aim to save. And like everyone started from every amount you can think of. So I don't mind if it was a 1% or a 2% saving goal, but at least I should have put something there. I should have put even like the tiniest goal, but a saving goal, a saving target. And you put a expense target. And then just say like these should be your guiding principles if you want for the next month. And then limit yourself and say, okay, this is what I want to like at max spend on this category or this category and this category, and actually follow them. I think this is where I also lack, or I had mistakes. I can maybe 1 month put all of these down, but I never had someone follow up with me and tell me, no, you're on track, you're not on track, pay attention, this is where you're overspending. And sometimes, like I told you, some expenses ran away from me without considering. So I think being fully aware of all your expenses is something that I should have done, and putting goals something that I should have done.
Do you think Loon helped you with that since you started using it?
Quite a lot, honestly. What I really liked about Loon, it was flexible in allowing me to put these without me going into these nitty-gritty details of actually like using a tool. It's like a dashboard, super simple dashboard. They already gave me a sort of basic recommendation based on my like inputs and salaries and category bucket. And they told me, you know what, your saving target should be X, your budget should be X. And I like appreciated the flexibility, and okay, no, I adjusted it a bit. But then as you go and check Loon every day or every week, you come to see, oh no, Maya, you're overspending here, you're not overspending there, you're on target in this area and this area. I've never had this. So I was so happy when I was under budget last week. You don't even get it.
And it starts being fun, right?
I know. And I screenshotted it and I sent it to my mom. I'm like, look, I'm under budget.
It gets exciting.
And so maybe before I used to start the exercise alone, but I never had follow-up, and not real-time follow-up. So you'd have to wait until the whole month ends till you download your transactions. But here with Loon, okay, I do the transaction. What is it? 24 hours, 48 hours. And then I have a full view of what happened and what not happened. So it's really helped me stay in touch real-time, if you want, with my expenses and seeing them all together. Because at one point in time, when you pay something, you are seeing that value, but you're not seeing it with all the other values that happened that day. But with Loon, you get that full view whenever you want it. You're able to like do these monthly checks with yourself, and Loon comes and sends you notifications every while. And so you're like, okay, no, I need to go in and see. So when you know you've overspent, it's like quite hard to enter to Loon. But when you know you're like being a good person about it and following your own rules, it becomes quite exciting to go in and see. Tick, tick, tick.
I'm a good girl.
Yeah, exactly. And it gave me a couple of good insights on what I'm spending on the most, which was quite weird, to be honest. I realized that shopping wasn't my number 1, for example.
What's your number 1?
It was gym and food. And I did not realize that it was such a high number. So now I'm looking so I realized this yesterday, actually. I'm looking for PTs that can like get me a better price or something.
That's very good.
Yeah. So I'm trying. Let's see. I'm trying to negotiate negotiate with myself.
I'm so glad to hear this from you, and that Loon affected you this positively.
So much. No, you don't get it. Like, I'm the kind of person that needs hand holding, and this is the right hand holding I needed.
And this is one of the reasons I was excited to have you today, and like even named the episodes from a consultant point of view, is because like, okay, I'm a consultant, and I get to tell people what to do and what to not do and all that, but I also like fall into the traps you do.
Oh my God, on point.
Having like Loon to guide, or having, even if, for example, people started using Loon and did not want to continue or whatever, they will just know that, okay, I need to be on the financial management aspect of my life in a way or another,
Exactly on point, like you said it. I'm a consultant. I tell people what to do and how to solve problems, but that means two things. I either don't want to do it for my own self because I'm tired, or because I do need that support as well. So Loon becomes like as the perfect like puzzle piece for that. And even if you continue or do not continue with it, at least it gives you that broader image of, okay, please, this is a pulse check. Look at you, look at yourself, look at your expenses, and see where you are in life. And more and more, like regardless of Loon, more and more, we're realizing how much countries, economies, and people, individuals, are focusing more on financial well-being because it's so attached to emotional well-being. And so the more you can take care of that financial well-being and you become more financially literate about yourself, the more you can control your emotional well-being and manage your expectations, your stress levels, your happiness levels, etc.
It's all related. Yes, I agree.
Exactly. It's all part of having an individual well-being that's well maintained and well catered.
Perfect. Okay, so like we mentioned, that everyone knows by now that consulting like comes with its perks. And
yes, very high perks.
The high pay is one of the perks. So if I may ask, do you save monthly, and if not, why?
So this is a very tricky question. I tried saving, but like I told you, because I didn't put a goal to it, it was very random, very sporadic. Like the month that there was no like a lot of events in my life, so whatever, I'm like, oh, okay, I saved this X amount of like money. But it was never intentional. My biggest regrets from like this industry or what I've done so far, like 7 years, I believe 7 years, I've lost so much potential on saving. And you realize them now because when you're a bit younger and it's your first job, you don't think about commitments in the future. You don't think about buying a house or like investing or like seeing other countries and investing in them. You don't think that wide. You're only thinking about your day to day, or max, you're thinking about your trip. But when you get to the age I'm at right now, I'm thinking, no, Maya, you should have thought more about investment. You should have thought more about long term. And all of these require cash that I haven't built up. And I'm like, to be honest, I'm one of, like you've said, those people who are like fortunate enough and privileged to have had a job that's a bit above market, but I didn't take advantage of it. And to be honest, I only started saving a couple of months ago.
And how is that going?
Let's hope it goes well. So far, I'm actually like, I'm on track. So hopefully it works. And to be honest, like I told you, I entered Loon and I'm scared. I want to go see, okay, have I been able to like put that amount down? And I see yes. And I'm like, okay, relief. So far I'm on track. Let's see.
That's amazing to hear. If you have one piece of advice for those who are listening to us today, whether being a consultant or about money management, what would that be?
I think my advice would be to first of all, reflect on what you want from your financial well-being. Set goals for yourself that are very clear and very achievable, not too ambitious. And then instead of putting all the pressure that you've accumulated on you achieving these goals, try to use as many tools as possible. It might be Loon, it might be Excel, it might be using some of your accounting friends. Just take advantage of any tool you have next to you and try to translate these goals into plans that you can loosely follow. And the more that you can follow, you can think about how to secure your future and how to live comfortably, not only in the now, but in the long term. So if I were to recap, it would be just put goals and then try to get as much support as you can from your ecosystem to make sure these goals translate into plans that will ensure that you are able to have that financial well-being that will project its benefits across the other aspects of your life.
Thank you, Mayar, so much. Thank you for joining me this week.
It was a pleasure, to be honest.
The pleasure is all mine, literally.
It felt like I know you for 10 years now.
Oh, that's so cute of you. Thank you for supporting Loon and its journey.
Thank you. Anytime.
Inshallah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Please subscribe for the podcast in your podcasting app to get weekly updates and follow us on Join Loon. I've been your host, Ali Al-Matroushi. Don't forget so we can know what you think.